Hello, BookTube. I have books for you. Mail on a Sunday. The mail on the weekends is odd here. It's not the usual people driving the trucks or walking the route, and so their timing is different. During the weekday, I know to the half hour when and if somebody's going to deliver something to me, when they're going to do it, and I know the people, and they know me, and they know my dog, and they knew my dogs before that. But on the weekend, it's different people, and packages came last night after I was checking, after I stopped checking. And in addition to that, I've got a new book that I want to show you that I opened off camera, and a couple of books that I got at a little free library because it's no longer freakishly cold here. It's still too cold. Boston in early February should be in the 70s Fahrenheit, as it is all the time. The average temperature in Boston at all times is 70 degrees Fahrenheit, completely clear and completely dry, no moisture of any kind, no snow, no sleet, no rain, not even dew. Uh, it's weird when that isn't true anymore, and this last week it's been cold, so that you need to put on what I had to Google it. It's called a winter jacket. I remember using those in old-timey times a long, long time ago, but Boston hasn't been like that since the climate started changing. But today was bright and sunny, a clear blue sky, and chilly, but not cold. Which meant the number one thing that it meant most of all is that the Bean and I got to go on a long rambling walk. I walk her all the time. I walk her whenever she says that she wants to go out, even if she half thinks about it. But at least one of our walks during the day is big, long, and unstructured. One of the things that I like to do, those of you who walk dogs, if you don't walk your dog, you should. And if you're just putting the dog out in a backyard, imagine how long it would take you to know every blade of grass in that backyard. It would take about 5 minutes. It takes them about 5 minutes. They want new stimuli. Walking is fun. But those of you who walk your dogs, you really should indulge in at least once in a while, I would say at least once a day, in the kind of walk that I'm talking about, where the only order that I impose on the walk is that Frida not walk out into traffic. Otherwise, she decides where we'll turn right instead of left. She decides how long we'll stay in any one place. No pulling, no jerking of any kind, just her walk. She gets to just roam around. And I'm just there to make sure that someone takes care of the human stuff. Once it's a little bit warmer than this, that will be every walk. The only thing that curtails our walks now, two things. One is that the first walk of the morning, she doesn't want to walk any length of time. Frida does not like the morning. She's not a morning person at all. And the second thing that would curtail the walk is if I'm in physical pain. If it's brutally cold or windy. If it's rainy, then neither one of us is going to want to be out there. And of course, during the summer, Boston didn't have any triple-digit days last summer, but this summer I'm sure that we will. Every part of the country except Boston had months of Venusian weather, of 115 degrees at 11 o'clock at night. That didn't happen to Boston, but it will. I mean, it was just a freak exception last time. That also would not be healthy for us to be out there for long, long walks in that kind of weather, not least because the pavement would be hot on Frida's little tootsies. She won't wear any human clothes of any kind. She won't wear a coat on cold days. She won't wear booties under any circumstances. But we went on one of those walks today. It was lovely. And we passed a little free library, and I grabbed a couple of books from that as well. So let's start with little free library books, and then we'll work our way up to the packages. I got a mass market paperback, battered, water-stained. I'm sure that's why it was in this little free library. But I love murder mysteries. I have a hankering for murder mysteries at all times. March Mystery Madness is right around the corner. BookTube's venerable event celebrating murder mysteries. But unlike a lot of other venerable BookTube events where I confine my reading of the subject to the event, I couldn't possibly do that with murder mysteries. I love them way, way too much. And I found a murder mystery series, the Gemma James novels of Debbie Crombie. I found this one is called "And Justice There Is None." Really evocatively done. I don't know this series as well as a lot of you do. I bet you mystery fans. I think I've only read one book in this series. Did it have bones in the title? You're going to give me a list here? Dreaming of the Bones. I read that, and I quite liked it. And I don't think that I've read any others in the series. So I saw this. It's on its last legs. No one's going to want this. It's battered and creased and also water stained. So I grabbed it. I'll give it a home. What have we got here? Sergeant Gemma James of New Scotland Yard is adjusting to professional and personal changes that include her eagerly sought promotion to the rank of inspector, and a future with now intimately entwined with Detective Superintendent Duncan Kincaid. But her new responsibilities are put to the test when she is placed in charge of a particularly brutal homicide. The lovely, pregnant, and unfaithful young wife of a wealthy antiques dealer has been found murdered in the driveway of her home on fashionable Notting Hill. With a devastated lover and a jealous husband left in the dead woman's wake, the focus of Gemma's case seems clear. But Duncan has other ideas, and soon the two find themselves at increasing odds with each other, as their separate investigations become linked in the most startling and deadly of ways. That doesn't ring a bell. If I've read this, I've long since forgotten it. So I will be in the position of all you mystery fans where you pick up a mystery, you think, ooh, that sounds good, and then you get 50 pages in and realize, oh, I read this already. I had an old friend once that used to happen to him all the time. I don't think so, though. I don't think I ever read this. So I will give this a try. I love murder mysteries so much. And serendipity, the serendipity of finding anything in a little free library. I love that so much, but I might not wait. I might make this my palate cleanser tonight, even though I've got a bunch of Boston Public Library book sale palate cleansers to go. I might still pop this on the list for tonight. This sounds really good. And then there's a history from 2010. I must have seen this in the list. This was Echo Books. I must have seen this in publisher announcements and whatnot. I can't remember if I got a copy, and I don't think I ever reviewed it. I might have borrowed a copy from the library. I got a review copy for a friend. I don't think I had any critical connection to this book at all. The main question for me is the same one as with this thing, which is, did I read it? It's by David Van Raybroek, and it's a history of Congo. And I don't know. It's a big thing. It was right there in the little free library. I don't know that I have read this. I guess I'll just dive into it. I guess I could check my reading journals and see if maybe there's some mention. It's not jumping out at me at all. So I feel almost certain that I did not review this. Whether or not I read it, we'll have to see. It's got a whole bunch of blurbs on the back. A review from Booklist. Okay, there's an author who wrote a book on the Congo, and he blurbed this book as well. For a minute, I just saw his name, and I thought, oh my God, you're not telling me you're a book critic with a name like that, because his name is Michael Wrong. Simply change your name. Use a pen name. That's fatal. That's not. You can't recover from that if you're a critic, to have your name be wrong. But I will dig into this gladly. A big elaborate work of history, absolutely. Then we have the finished copy of something that we saw the advanced copy of this thing. This comes out at the end of February, so this will be circling close to my list. This is the finished copy of Thomas Mullen's book, The Rumor Game. A quite stylish cover. This is the author of Darktown that was quite good and caught a lot of critics off guard with how good it was. Let's see here. This opens in Boston during the summer of 1943, where wartime tensions are running high and an atmosphere of distrust and unease is dividing friends and neighbors. Two people, a determined reporter and a reluctant FBI agent, find themselves in the center of a tinderbox, trying to douse the sparks before flames engulf the city. Reporter Annie Lemire writes The Rumor Clinic, a newspaper column that disproves the many harmful rumors floating around town, some of them spread by Axis sympathizers, and others just gossip mixed with fear and ignorance. She's getting tired of chasing rumors about female factory workers using explosive hairspray or Maine lobsters poisoned by the Nazis. She wants to write about something bigger. Special Agent Devin Mulvey, one of the few Catholics at the FBI, spends his weekdays preventing sabotage in the war industries and his Sundays spying on clerics with divided loyalties. And he spends his evenings wooing the many lonely women whose husbands are off at war. I can think of one 1940s housewife that wouldn't have been wise to do. When Annie's story about Nazi propaganda being handed out by local businessmen intersects with Devin's investigation into the death of an immigrant factory worker, the two are led down a dangerous trail of espionage, organized crime, and domestic fascism. one that implicates their own tangled past and threatens to expose a large pattern of conspiracy than either of them could have imagined. So, alrighty, well, 1940s Boston. I guess understandable that although a couple of signature wonderful things could come out of 1940s Boston, there'd be some bad things as well. That's perfectly understandable. This is at the end of the month. The advanced copy is on my work shelf. I actually did finally buckle down and make my work shelf of review copies, and I'm just going to swap out the advanced copy of this for the finished copy, and it will be there. But February has just started. The first big new release day is this coming Tuesday, the 6th, so there's a barrage of books for then. I've got a lot of them to do, so as weird as it seems for a forward reader like myself, probably I will not get to this right away. Probably I will wait another week before I get to this. And those are all of the miscellaneous freestanding stuff. Now we have 2 packages here, and then we'll be done. We're opening mail on a Sunday. Very nice. What have we got here? We'll see if there's anything really of interest. Okay. All right. This comes out in May. This comes out in early May. I don't have a pub sheet for this, so we'll just read the back of the book. I had a discussion with the publicist about this because it might not be smooth sailing for me. This is The End of Everything: How Wars Descend into Annihilation, and it's by Victor David Hanson. Victor Davis Hanson is a trained historian. He's written a lot of books, wrote a book on the Peloponnesian War that you might have read it and liked it. This is his latest thing, coming out in May. So let's read about it. War can settle disputes, topple tyrants, and bend the trajectory of civilization, sometimes to the breaking point. From Troy to Hiroshima, moments when war has ended in utter annihilation have reverberated through the centuries, signaling the end of political systems, cultures, and epochs. Though much has changed over the millennia, human nature remains the same. Modern societies are not immune from the horror of a war of extinction. In The End of Everything, military historian Victor Davis Hanson narrates a series of sieges and sackings that span the age of antiquity to the conquest of the New World, to show how societies descend into barbarism and obliteration. In the stories of Thebes, Carthage, Constantinople, and Tenochtitlan, he depicts war's drama, violence, and folly, highlighting the naivete that plagued the vanquished and the wrath that justified mass slaughter. Hanson delivers a sobering call to contemporary readers to heed the lessons of obliteration, lest we blunder into the catastrophe again. And Victor Davis Hanson is the senior fellow of military history at the Hoover Institute and a professor emeritus of classics at the California State University, Fresno. He's written a lot of books. And you might be, if that's all you know, you might be wondering, well, okay, this sounds right up your alley. What could be the problem? What is the ambivalence that we're hearing in your voice? And the ambivalence is completely extracurricular. It is completely extracurricular. Victor Davis Hanson is an American and an ardent Trump supporter. Which was bad enough before Donald Trump organized and incited and wanted to personally lead a violent insurrection, a coup attempt to take over the government of this country, eradicate the Constitution, and make slaves of everyone who is not in his immediate family. Victor Davis Hanson would have been a slave if Trump had succeeded. I would be a slave if he had succeeded. If you have to sig hail at the beginning of every meeting, at the beginning of every school class, you are not free. If you are not free in a fascist dictatorship, you are a slave. Anything can be required of you. You can do anything. You have no rights, except the rights the boss says you have. Victor's support of Donald Trump before January 6th was maddeningly stupid. It was maddeningly historically uninformed for a very good historian. For years. So we're talking after double dealing, after kicking the press out of the Oval Office to invite the Russians in, after Helsinki, after it was known that Trump was fencing and stealing classified documents, after kids in cages, after drawing a hurricane path on a map rather than admit you said a state wrong, after all of that dementia, all that insanity, Victor was still going on TV. Of course, by this point, he was not getting invited to non-fascist channels, but he was still going on TV and saying that the people who don't like this guy just don't like his accent. The first time I heard that, I thought, that's insane. You have to know that's insane. And then the Trump presidency happened, and 3 years into that Trump presidency, I caught him giving an interview like that and saying the same thing. I think it's one of the only times that I unloaded a very prickly South Boston F-bomb directly to the screen. I don't even want to know now, with this book in my hand, I don't even want to know now if post-coup, Victor is still saying that people just don't like Trump because they don't like his Queen's accent. I don't even want to know if he's still saying that. But I feel certain, knowing the man, I feel certain that he still supports Trump, that he still defends him. And he is indefensible. So I admit, that is extracurricular. That has nothing to do with this book. I was emailing with the publicist. This is going to be a challenge for me to take a deep breath and read this book as a work of history. That's going to be a challenge. We'll see if I can do it. I'll admit it to you. When we talk about this closer to the day in early May, I will admit it to you. If I reach the point where I read this thing and think, I'll read this in April. And then in late April, I'll read the finished copy. So I'll give this a close read twice. And at the end of that time, I say, I can't do it. I can't do it. Well, that'll be that. I'll admit it to, this isn't going to have an index. All I want to know now is if Trump is in the index. All I want to know is if he's in this book. He shouldn't be. We will see. This is an object lesson for all you would-be critics out there. Not that there are many, because I have a standing invitation for you to get in touch with me if you are and you don't. But all of you are critics on Goodreads or Amazon anyway. This is an object lesson. Can I do it or can't I? We will see. We will see. I have to admit, part of me is looking forward to the challenge. It's just, how am I to read this book knowing that Victor would be okay with Trump being in charge again? I'm sure that he would, that I don't know where he speaks these days, I don't know if he avoids the subject completely anymore. I haven't checked and I don't want to check. But I feel certain that he would say the best thing for the country would be for Trump to retake power. Trump has said, either himself or through surrogates, that he wants to eradicate the Constitution, that he wants to be a dictator, that he intends to set up concentration camps on U.S. soil, among many other things. He has said he has promised a fascist dictatorship in this country. He has promised to take control of the country, staff every level of government with loyalists. I was going to say I don't see how anyone could support that, but of course a functioning majority of this country does support that. But for a historian to support that, I don't know if Victor does. It should be fair. I don't know if he still does support this guy. But I find it hard to believe. He gets fairly dug in. I find it hard to believe he's changed his mind. I find it hard to believe that January 6th has changed his mind. We shall see. We shall see. Let's move on to the next one. It can't possibly be as contentious as that one. We'll move on to this next one, and then we'll be done for mail for today. What have we got here? I need all sorts of stuff. I need all sorts of stuff. I don't need training wheels. I know what I'm doing. Oh, this is from the folks at Yale University Press. Ooh. Okay. Oh, all right. This comes out on February 6th. This is one of that bottleneck. This must be the finished copy. This is pretty. Okay, this is in paperback. Did this ever have a hardcover? I don't know. I'll have to look this up. This is The History of England's Cathedrals by Nicholas Orme, who did a very good book on Tudor children just recently. The first history of all of English cathedrals from Birmingham to Bury St. Edmunds to Worcester to York Minster. You couldn't consult with Nicholas Orme, whoever you are, whoever wrote this pub sheet, you couldn't consult with him before you wrote that? That is obviously not true. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the body of the text itself. England's 62 Anglican and Catholic cathedrals are some of the most iconic buildings, attracting millions of worshippers and visitors every year. Yet, although much has been written about their architecture, there is no complete history of their life and activities. First of all, this is tiny. This is not a complete history of anything. And second, that has been done. What on earth are you thinking? You said it again. This is the first book. God, it's the third time. This is the first book to provide one, stretching from Roman times to the present day. This book explains where and why the cathedrals were founded, who staffed them, and how their structures evolved. It describes their worship and how this changed over the centuries, their schools and libraries, and their links with the outside world. The history of these astonishing buildings is the history of England. Reading this book will bring you face to face with the Anglo-Saxons, the Vikings, the Normans, the Reformation, the Civil War, Victorian England, World War II, and finally modern democracy. Fantastic. Okay, well, aside from the claims of the pub sheet, this is dated for early February. Did this come out already? The reason I say it's the finished copy is because it's nice and floppy, and it has the French flaps. Well, it's a Yale book, so it won't have the price on it. But this looks like what you'll get in bookstores. I'm pretty sure that this will be the finished copy. Do we have maybe a price on this? No, we don't. But I'm thinking that this is the UK branch of Yale. There we have Going to Church in Medieval England and also Tudor Children, but that is not the American cover of Tudor Children, unless it's a paperback. That's the UK cover. So obviously, I'm going to need to dig in with this thing and figure out what it is that I actually have in my hand. See, this is copyright 2017. So this might be Yale printing this in America. Maybe this never had an American publication. I'll have to check with Yale and see. And maybe this is being brought out because Tudor Children got a lot of notice. It was reviewed everywhere. I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. I'll try to remember to leave a link down below. I'll also try to leave, if I can remember, I think that Victor's last book, I Savaged. I'm pretty sure that I did. And if I did, I'll try to find a link to that as well. I think I reviewed it on the other side of the world, so it might not be easy to find. This, I'm assuming because it's floppy that it's well illustrated. Oh yes, it's full of illustrations. Black and white illustrations, maps, and also color illustrations all throughout. Not just in an inset in the middle, but all throughout. Oh, fantastic. Just incredible. Oh my God. All right, well, this... I'll have to figure out its provenance, but this is fascinating. I have been to every one of those cathedrals. I've been to every one of them, most of them, many times. Fantastic. Okay, great. Talking about a Steve book. All right, so this comes out on Tuesday. This is out right away. I'll set the sheet aside so that I can find out a little bit more about it. But I'm pretty sure that's what this is. I'm pretty sure that Nicholas Orme, he had a minor Yale hit with Tudor Children, and maybe now we're getting his two other books in these lovely trade paperbacks in America, which would be great. But anyway, that is this weird book video for a Sunday. We have the history of England's cathedrals. We have the end of everything. Victor Davis Hanson writing about wars of annihilation. Please make it so that the final chapter is not him warning about woke. Please make that so. Anyway, then we have Thomas Mullen, the Rumor Game, set in 1940s Boston. Can't go wrong there. Then Congo by David Rayburg. Do any of you know this book? Did any of you read this back in 2010? And finally, And Justice There Is None, Deborah Crombie. And here again, I could ask very much so, do any of you know this author? Are any of you fans of hers? What am I getting into here? Are they really good, just meaty historical fiction a la Anne Perry? Or how would you characterize them? I'd love to know. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.